Let's see how you did with the first story, Oliver's Friend. So there's different things leading up to the biggest conflict, right? From the time he goes to sleep, things start to happen. He wakes up to strange blue glow in his room. He looks over at his laptop, and there's a message. Oliver, you never play with me anymore. I thought we were friends. Creepy. Then the next conflict happens when he calls for his grown-ups, but there was no answer. When he tries opening his bedroom door, and it's jammed. When he looks back at his computer or his desk, and the computer's gone. Where's the computer? In his bed. Then he grabs the computer, punted it out the open window, and he was safe for at least a little while. So what kind of external conflict is this? Okay. Is it with society? What is it? If you said character versus technology, you are correct, because the biggest issue is this computer came alive and it's after him because he won't play with him anymore. The next story that you read, Juliet's Weekend Plans. Where is the external conflict in this story? So this is really tricky because there's a lot going on here, okay? We have conversation between two characters, and we also have Juliet thinking about what other people are going to think. But the biggest external conflict comes from when the mom and the daughter are having a conversation. And she says, can I go to Eva's birthday party? And mom says, we have a family reunion this Saturday. Maybe you can go next time. So mom says no. So what type of conflict is this? If you said character versus character, you would be correct, because she asked her mom and her mom said no. And that's kind of where it ended. The answer is no, you can't. And all she could think about was, well, while they're all talking about a birthday party, I'm going to be talking about my great aunt. Boring. So that's how we get the character versus character, the mom versus the daughter. James on the Lake. Well, this is an interesting story. This is not a situation that I would want to be in. So there's a lot of conflict going on in this story. So we have our first conflict where we know that James is in a little boat. Okay, we know that. Now, we also know that he went out on the lake in the rain. Okay, so not only is he in a little boat, but he's out on this lake and it's raining. So what starts to happen? Well, he's turned around, all right? He doesn't know where he's at. He's all mixed up. And there's so much water coming down on him. He grabs his hat and he starts to bail, one hat at a time, emptying the boat. But the rain is coming down too fast. And he's thinking, I'm going to sink. He looks for shore, but it's too far out on the lake. He starts bailing faster, and he realizes he can't swim through the storm. He has to think fast what to do. So he's got internal conflict going on in his head. What am I going to do? But then there's also external conflict, which is much bigger. So what is this? James versus what? If you said James versus nature, you would be absolutely correct, because he is dealing with the rain. He cannot control the rain. He can only control what he is doing and how he's going to face this problem. The next story that you read was Hadley's Problem. Well, this one is pretty easy compared to the other ones. We know that Hadley, first of all, he looks at Elijah's frozen form. Well, first of all, here's our first clue. There's fairies, okay? And they're doing all kinds of things to her cat, all right? They're playing pranks on her, all right? They're freeze bombing. She can't move her right arm or leg for hours. And it was her turn to get back to the fairies. We also have a witch in the story, okay? And of course, the witch is going to try to help Hadley deal with the fairies. So we have all this conflict going on, okay? But the biggest thing is what the fairies are doing and what the witch is doing. And none of this is real, okay? Because we have fairies and witches. So, knowing that this is a story about a conflict between fairies, witches, and Hadley and her poor frozen cat, what are we dealing with? Hadley versus what? If you said Hadley versus the supernatural, you would be correct, because fairies and witches are not real, and so they're like supernatural forms, okay? They're ideas that we come up with that are not real. So, good job. For our next story, we read The Frog Takeover. So it's year 3025, future. And the frogs have taken over the world. Okay? So, how are the frogs treating the humans? Well, they have to wear green every day. Okay? All right, that's fine. But humans only eat flies and live in swamps. This is a deal breaker. And now the people are starting to not enjoy the frogs taking over, right? And it's talking about preserving important parts of the human culture, like recording the rules of pickleball, how to cook rice in a pressure cooker, right? So it starts talking about that. It's pretty funny. So when we talk about something else taking over and it involves a lot of people, right? All the humans, what are we dealing with? We're dealing with what? What kind of conflict? We're dealing with society, okay? We're talking about how this affects everyone, right? Everyone is being held accountable. So it's versus society, okay? So our conflict is dealing with how are the people going to work together to take back over what the frogs have done. So just a little side note here, and this is if you've been, if you've taken another class or you've been with another teacher, just a side note about the character names. You might sometimes see that the characters are listed, or the categories are listed just a little different. And that's because different teachers will call the categories by slightly different names, and that is by all means okay. Just know that character versus nature, protagonist, main character versus nature, man versus nature, woman versus nature, they all mean the same thing. They mean that the main character is dealing with a conflict that was created by nature. And sometimes you will see man versus society, and it's man only, okay? It's the same thing as character. Character versus whatever, all right? They all mean the same exact thing. So in a nutshell, conflict is a fundamental element in fiction because it makes a story interesting. Character conflict is when there's a clash of goals, values, and desires, or when there are obstacles for the main character. Conflicts can be internal or external. Most of the stories that we've read so far only have one conflict, but most great stories have the main character facing more than one type of conflict at a time.